Hi, I'm John, and welcome back to Dice Paper Miniatures. In today's episode, I'm going to do a more in-depth look at the new Direchasm's Crimson Court for Warhammer Underworlds, as we just got a recent update that gives a full preview and listing of all the cards in that expansion. I'm super excited, so let's go ahead and begin. Okay, so as mentioned in my previous recap video from last Saturday's pre-order, Sunday's preview, and New Model Monday, I wanted to do a deep dive into the new Direchasm Crimson Court. Now, this was actually released a little bit earlier. This was from the 6th of April, but this goes into the cards of the actual warband itself. And what I found interesting was there was an article about the game designers, how they play within the Direchasm settings, because some of the new core mechanics within Direchasm could arguably like compete with the mechanics of this vampire warband. So let's take a look at how they resolve that by having some unique mechanics specifically for this warband. So the Crimson Court is an aggressive warband that must manage their unique mechanic Bloodthirst, which we'll look at here, to excel on the battlefield. So while control of their hunger brings special abilities and is required for inspiration, the savage bloodlust that takes over, should their thirst run rampant, comes with its own benefits too. After all, a burst of murderous fury might be just what you need to crack open that walking bags to crack open the walking bags of blood we call mortals. So let's look at Prince Duval's card. He's got Prince Duval and Duval inspired. So his uninspired, the front side of his card, it's possessed blade, -1 dice to a minimum of 1 and +1 damage if this fighter has bloodthirst. So less dice, more damage. The curse. At the start of the round, give the fighter 1 hunger counter. The hunger reaction. After this fighter's attack action, which takes an adjacent enemy fighter out of action, remove 1 or more hunger counters from this fighter. Okay, so let's see. He's got Bloodthirst. If this fighter has 3 or more hunger counters, he has Bloodthirst and cannot be put on guard. So Bloodthirst. If this fighter has 3 or more hunger counters, he has Bloodthirst and cannot be on guard. Then he inspires. At the end of the action phase, this fighter has no hunger counters. Interesting. So at the start of the round, he always gets 1 hunger counter. That's the curse. And the hunger reaction, if he takes out an adjacent enemy fighter, then you remove 1. So interesting. Yeah, so okay, that's interesting. So the curse is he automatically starts with 1 at the start of the round. And then if he doesn't remove it, the hunger keeps building. And when he gets Bloodthirst, he has less dice but more damage. Interesting. But if you remove it, then if you're able to at the end of the turn have 0 hunger counters, he inspires. Whew, could be tricky. Tricky. So when he inspires, interesting, lurking hunger. After an activation, if this fighter has 3 or more hunger counters, this fighter, he reverts back to being uninspired. Wow. But 4 movement on his uninspired, as well as his inspired, 1 shield on his uninspired, but 2 on his inspired, and 4 health either way. Fiendish Lure, spell reaction. Use this after this fighter's attack action takes the target out of action. If cast, choose 1 enemy fighter within 4 hexes of this fighter. Push the chosen fighter up to 2 hexes closer to this fighter. I mean, he does decent damage at 2. Technically gets 3 for his attack. Man, I'll be curious how this plays out. It looks interesting. I'm not 100% on this model, but it's either going to be very powerful or just okay. I really don't know what's better though. His uninspired, being able to once he's got Bloodthirst, he can do more damage, lesser dice, but more damage. So his damage isn't as consistent, but definitely more bursty. Yeah, very interesting. His inspire mechanic, just being able to draw people closer. I guess that's cool. I guess, There's probably some cool mechanics where you can, by being able to pull people closer to him, he'll likely, especially if he has one of his other teammates nearby, being able to get extra dice by having, was it team up or whatever it is. Gorath the Enforcer, Prince Duval's right hand man and all around reliable chap. Gorath expertly wields his soulbound mace and gets even tougher when the bloodthirst overtakes him. Although it does also make him rather slow. Okay. He might not look like a wizard, but he too can flex his arcane arts when inspired, allowing him to transfer. Oh my gosh. He can transfer wounds and even hunger counters between fighters. This is where it gets crazy. Okay. All right. So his range is 2. Interesting. He's got the same movement as Duval, a 4, a 1, and a 4. Identical stats. Not as good on his inspired, but still. He does more damage when inspired. And he has a higher range in general, 2 on his attack. So Bloodthirst, if this fighter has 3 or more hunger counters, he has Bloodthirst and cannot be on guard. Okay, that's fine though if he can move damage around. And then of course, if he's at the end of the action phase and there's no hunger counters, he inspires. Okay, so he's got a -1 move when he's bloodthirsty, so he goes to a 3. -1 move to a minimum of 0. Wow, he could, I guess, just be planted. And +1 wounds if this fighter has bloodthirst. So slower but tougher. Okay, so he goes up to a 5. 5 is pretty good. The curse at the start of the round, give this fighter 1 hunger counter. Okay. The hunger reaction after this fighter's attack action, which takes an adjacent enemy out of action. Okay, so he's very similar. In order to remove hunger, he's got to take dudes out. Okay, that's fair. He's got to take models out. That's fair. And then he's got Vile Transference. So spell action. If cast, choose 1 friendly fighter within 4 hexes and 1 enemy fighter within 4 hexes. Remove 1 hunger or wound counter from one of the chosen fighters and give it to the other. Wow, that's cool. Okay, so now we have Velas von Thane. Okay, so Velas might not wield magic like her comrades, but she's an exceptional duelist with her twin curved sabers. She becomes permanently on guard while inspired, of course, as well as cleaving and ensnaring her foes for good measure. All right, so she's got same stats, 4-1-4, okay? And they don't change when inspired. The range is 1, similar to Duval. She's got only 2 dice as opposed to 3 for attacks. That's fine. Similar bloodthirst, 3 or more. She gets hungry, and then she's can't be put on guard. And then she inspires when she has no hunger counter. So consistent mechanics, probably in all of them. Paired blades, scything. If this fighter has bloodthirst, okay. So the curse at the start of the round, give this. Yep, okay. The hunger. So scything it's a keyword mechanic. I'm not familiar off the top of my head what scything does, but that's cool. And then she's got the curse, similar. And then the hunger, same way. And then when she's inspired, this fighter is on guard. So she loses scything, but she's always on guard. That's pretty cool. Yeah, she's fine. Aeneas Curseborn, as opposed to Enos, because I think Enos would be silly. So Aeneas. Aeneas Curseborn. As the most savage and impulsive of the warband, Aeneas takes flight while inspired and can soar across enemy fighters in dangerous terrain alike. He's quite capable of bashing a few heads with his mace when he gets wherever he's going to. So he doesn't have shields, he's got dodges, so that's interesting. And he does get better. He's 4-1-4 like the other vampires, except it's a dodge instead of a shield. And then he's got a 2 dodge when he's inspired. Same bloodthirst mechanic, same thing about removing hunger counters. All cool. It's interesting. He's got 3 swords, but then he's got 3 hammers when he's inspired. 2 damage each time. He's got a +2 move if he's got bloodthirst, so he moves. He goes from 4 to 6. That's very cool. Otherwise, when he's inspired, when this fighter makes a move action, he can move through block or occupied hexes and cannot be dealt damage by lethal hexes. Okay. Action. He must end his move action in an empty hex. Okay, fair enough. He's just kind of like good. I mean, the 2 extra movement is awesome. And being able to move through things inspired, I mean, that's not bad. He's good because he's just 3 damage dice and 2 damage per die. This is an interesting warband. I feel like there seems to be some good interplay with Gorath and your leader pulling in to be able to like team up against other enemy models is awesome. Him being able to move wounds or hunger around. Um, she's just a good, like, I guess, she's just going to be hard to take down between the guard and then scything. I think scything is a like an AoE effect. So that's great. And what's really you want to, yeah, that's fantastic. And then for objectives, this is your objective getter. So I think this is a fairly well crafted. I'm not sure if it's balanced, but a well crafted warband. And then we got our curse cards. So, cards of the curse. So, being an aggressive bunch of fighters, the Crimson Court has several objectives that take advantage of their overwhelming power. Best of all, with cards like Blood Curse, you're rewarded for either killing a whole bunch of enemies or protecting your own fighters. Yeah, okay. Eternal Life, Eternal Hunger, Hybrid. Score this in the third end phase if surviving friendly fighters have 10 or more hunger counters, or there's only one surviving enemy fighter, or there's only one surviving enemy fighter. Okay. I mean, you have to wait to the third phase, but, it's pretty decent. You're going to get 3 some way or another. And then while enemy warbands might think they can sit safely out of the vampire's reach and shower them in arrows, Gorath has other ideas. Thanks to Enforcer's Cloak, bowmen and other range attackers might find they catch a mace around the chops much sooner than they were expecting. So let's see what this does. After an attack action that targets this fighter, place this fighter in an empty. Oh my gosh. All right. So you can literally just move your model right next to one of their models. That is an amazing card. That card is stupid good for this warband for sure. All right, so it takes a powerful commanding presence to keep one vampire under your influence, let alone 3. Luckily, Prince Duval is an expert at manipulating his fellow hunters. Driven to Hunt, for instance, allows him to stoke their bloodthirst or drive them towards their next meal, whichever serves his purpose better. So, okay, let's see what Driven to Hunt does. It is restricted. I think all of the, nope, that one is. The other 2 aren't. Okay, so pick one. Give 1 hunter counter to each friendly fighter within 2 hexes of your leader, or push one other friendly fighter within 2 hexes of your leader up to 1 hex. Okay, that's interesting. Pick one. Give 1 hunter counter to each friendly fighter within 2 hexes of your leader, or push one other friendly fighter within 2 hexes of your leader up to 1 hex. I dig that. I like that card. It's a nice flavor card. And if it's ensorceling your opponent's fighters more your style, Dark Glamour is a vampire classic. With a piercing gaze, the Crimson Court's wizards can enrapture a foe and leave them staring blankly into space, unable to drag themselves away. So this sounds interesting. Dark Glamour. All right, so it's a gambit spell. If cast, choose 1 enemy fighter within 3 hexes of the caster and give that chosen fighter 1 move token. That's pretty brutal. All right, you're going nowhere. Where are you going? Nowhere. All right, so while those are some of our favorite cards in the Crimson Court set, they're by no means the only ones in there. Have a look at every card you'll be getting alongside the Vampiric Warband. Wow. Okay, so the Dark Hunger, Dark Glamour, Blood Vial, Bestial Transformation, Deathly Apotheosis, Driven to Hunt, Quicksilver Advance, Mighty Strike, Startling Competence, Tenebrous Form, Blood Chalice, Deathly Majesty, Enforcer's Cloak, Glutton for Gore, Mere Duelist, Ripping Claws, Undying Evil, Vampiric Might, Vampiric Speed, and the Von Marusi Armor. Wow. Awesome. And then we have Blood Curse, Courtly Hunt, Crimson Hounds, Death's Domain, Grave Lords, On the Chase, Return to Natural Speed, Recovered Poise, Red Ruin, Spirited Attempt, Superlative Skill, and Worthy Opponents. They weren't kidding, it's every card. So, Blood-Soaked Ground, Bountiful Bait, Claim to Supremacy, Invincible Aspect, irresistible hunger, magnificent aspect, momentary match, narrowing passage. And then we have punching up, taste for power, armed to the teeth, awesome appetite, famished familiar, master of ways, prey bound, prey scent, silent helm, soul tooth dagger, starvation's grip, and tremendous maul. And then we have the channeled hunger, disastrous hunt, dominant display, fatal underestimation, leveling strike, magical mauling, not so fast. We had a card named Not So Fast as well. I think that's a pretty common term. And then Season of Famine, Skin and Bones, and Supreme Confidence. So while I don't want to go through every card, there were a few other warband specific cards I want to draw attention to that I thought were also very, very cool. So let me go ahead and scroll up here. Have some notes on that. So the Blood Vial, some of these are just classically good and expected vampire cards, but I think they're rad. So choose one friendly fighter, remove up to 2 of the chosen fighters' hunger counters, and heal 1 damage or wound from the chosen fighter. So I think that's just a great card to have. Is it spectacular? Maybe not, but I think it's thematically cool, and I think it gives you a lot of if you've made a mistake or some dice rolls have just kind of not gone your way, this is kind of a nice little get out of jail free, so to speak, where you can keep a fighter around a little bit longer, which is always cool. I also thought the this deathly apotheosis is also really strong. So choose one friendly fighter. While the fighter has bloodthirst, give that fighter 1 hunger counter at the end of the action phase and heal 1 each time that fighter is given 1 or more hunger counters. So I think that's pretty awesome. While the fighter is inspired, you can re-roll 1 dice in that fighter's attack rolls. This effect persists until the fighter is taken out of action. So I mean, as far as durability and keeping your warband around on the table for a while, I think that's just a great card. The other card I thought was great was the startling competence. So startling competence reaction. Play this card. Reaction. Play this after an enemy fighter's attack action that dealt damage to a friendly fighter. Pick 1. Remove 1 of that friendly fighter's hunger counters, or draw 1 power card, or push that friendly fighter 1 hex. I love cards that give you options. None of these effects are necessarily spectacular, but they're a good effect, and this one card gives you a lot of variety, a lot of options. So I think that's you get a lot of value for that one card. So I do like that. And then another card I liked was the Blood Chalice. This is just a good card considering you have basically you have 2 wizards on the team. Yeah, so I think Blood Chalice is a great card just because you have 2 wizards on your team that can benefit from this. And depending on your play style or the circumstances, there's a good argument, to use it on either one of your wizards. So when you give this to a fighter, remove that fighter's hunger counters. +1 wizard level. This fighter cannot have hunger counters. It's like a super inspire, right? Like, boom, once he got this card, his abilities improve, his wizard abilities improve. He won't suffer from the hunger. Now, you may not want that. Again, it's kind of circumstance based. It's restricted. It's definitely a strong card. And then 2 more, Vampiric Might and Vampiric Speed. So these are just kind of more traditional vampire flavored cards, which you'd expect to see, and I'm happy to see them. So Vampiric Might, again, this is kind of a value card because it gives you options, but it gives you +1 damage to this fighter's range, range 1, and range 2 attack actions. So again, +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions if this fighter is inspired, or it's +2 damage to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions on a critical hit if this fighter has bloodthirst. So it's not awesome, but it's more flavor and thematic, and for that I really like this card. And similarly with Vampiric Speed, you get a +1 move, but if he's got the bloodthirst or is inspired, he's going to get +2 move instead. That card on top of let's find the character here. on top of the Curseborn here, the Ennius Curseborn. That's an awesome card, especially if you're trying to play more objectively. Like I kind of feel this warband, you could have your two or three other characters kind of pulling in the opponent and kind of tearing them down, if you will, and just keeping them really off balance in terms of their play style and their game, while this guy can just fly all over the board and just gain like free objectives and profit. So if you can navigate that balance of keeping your opponents off balance and this guy running around the board doing his thing, and on occasion, if there's a guy that gets out of that bubble of you pulling in other models, if they get away from Count Duval, this guy's kind of like also a missile. He can just go in and snipe a guy too and take him out. That's pretty cool. So there's a lot of interesting mechanics at play with this team. I do think individually they might suffer a little, but as a team, as a war band, there's a lot of cool things you can do. So that's it as far as my kind of overview of this war band. Let's go ahead and jump into the summary now. So yeah, what did you all think? I thought this was pretty cool on Games Workshop's part to actually show all the cards for this expansion. I think it looks great. Anyone from GW watching this, thanks for posting that content. It's awesome. But yeah, the Crimson Court, super cool looking as far as the models go. Super cool looking as far as the actual game mechanics go. I hope, things play as well as they look in theory or on paper. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm definitely going to pick up this expansion. So yeah, if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and sharing this content. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps the channel grow. Again, I hope everyone is doing well. Be safe, take care, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.